My name is Egberto Willies with Egberto Off the Record, along with El Senor, the one and only Marlon Weems of the Journeyman. And today we have something special to discuss, something that is active. Welcome aboard. I'm glad we're having this discussion, Marlon, because you are a financial guy. You know just about everything there is to know about capital
Not
and how
everything, but I know a bit.
well, I am not going to allow you to get away with saying not everything because I think having Trump as president and having quite a few of these guys that are what I call the real DEI hires in the government makes you quite a bit more than an expert, Marlon. So, I mean, you are my expert on capital. Anyway, how you doing today, Mr.
Let's just say
Journeyman?
I've seen some things.
How you doing today, my friend?
Not bad at all. Glad to be here. So thanks.
Well, thank you. Look, today I kind of named the topic that we're talking about today, sort of based on what you brought up, which is Canada, Mexico, and China will ensure Trump regrets starting a trade war. I know that's not the way you led it, but when I started thinking about it, I said, you know what? After I'm starting to see the response in Canada, Mexico, and China, and I'm talking about real response now.
Oh yeah.
At first it was a shock to everybody. It was a shock that I can't believe Trump is really going to do this to his friends. And now they're mad. What's your thoughts?
The way I think about how Trump behaves in these kind of situations, I mean, we all know, first and foremost, he's a bully. And he sort of built his reputation, although I don't know why people don't believe him because he does this. Going back to his real estate life, where he was known for not paying people and for having a plumber or a construction guy do the work, and then it becomes a negotiation over, well, how much am I really going to pay you? And so he's used to strong arming people, but the problem here, unlike those situations, the plumber or the carpenter, if you don't pay the guy and you're a billionaire, what's the worst thing that can happen? He sues you. Well, you got more money than him, so
Mhm.
what's your downside? And so he has gotten used to doing this sort of thing where the repercussions are pretty minimal in terms of the pushback or the fallout. Well, in the case, I mean, he's picked a fight with really the three biggest trading partners that we have. Now, you can look at China and maybe you can say in some instances they're an adversary, and in some, we're on the same team, so to speak, and we kind of need each other. We need their cheap labor, and and we like to buy their stuff, and we want cheap TVs and phones and whatnot. But these guys, there's not another China or another Mexico or Canada for Trump to go to. In the using the earlier scenario, okay, you piss off one carpenter, you just go get another one, right? Well, that's not available in this scenario, and also, you know, he should learn from what happened last time. Last time he was president, he did the same thing with China, and what happened? It nearly destroyed our agricultural business or sector, I should say. I was looking at some numbers, and I think, in fact, I want to be exact. In 2017, we were doing like this is direct aid to bail out farmers as a result of what happened when we went after China. I think it was steel and maybe aluminum or something of that nature, and they
Mhm.
came back on us and hit our soybean market. And so we went from direct aid in 2017, 11.5 billion. The next year, 32 billion. So that, if that gives you any indication of what's about to happen here, unless somebody pulls his chain, we're looking at some real difficulty because we and not to carry it too far. The guy literally has blown up his own agreement. Remember, when he was president before, there was a problem with NAFTA. It was something wrong with it. He never could really tell us what. And he sort of rebranded it, and now it's the what U.S. Free Trade Agreement,
USDM, yeah.
USDA, right? Well, now he's saying we're being taken advantage of, but it's the agreement he made. So he hasn't really articulated what it is that Canada is doing to us that warrants what he's done. But I think he didn't expect them to call his bluff the way that they have. And
You know,
so we're stuck.
let me tell you, want to remind those that are listening to us that back in the 1930s, we attempted to put tariffs on. It was called the
Smoot Hawley.
Smoot-Hawley Tariff
Yes.
Act.
Yes.
And during that time, all it did was exacerbated the depression.
That
And
is
there are
correct.
reasons why that reality is there and why it is likely to happen again. But I want to get into a few technical things here that I want to point out in addition to what you just said, Marlon. Here are the following things. I want people to understand. First of all, Marlon brought up an excellent point of what happened to agriculture when Trump did it the first time. He thought he was going to be able to use these tariffs to load the American coffers with money. Because let's be clear, those of you that are listening to this program, there aren't tariffs that are really applied to countries. Tariffs, anytime America applies a tariff, America is applying a sales tax to the American people or to American businesses. And the reason I'm including businesses is for fairness. What I mean is the following. China will be hit with a 10% tariff. Now, when Walmart sells goods from China, Walmart marks those goods up. So here's the reality. There's a good chance that the tariff from China will only cause a marginal increase in the prices of the food, the stuff from China, because again, they're paying the tax on the value of the product before we add value. In other words, they're gonna, if you buy a piece of clothes for $10 that you're gonna sell for $20, the tariff is on $10, not $20. So these companies may believe that Trump will be able to just hold this for a while, and they may sort of eat some of the costs. But at 25%, they can't do that.
No.
They
And
can do
keep
it.
in mind, you're talking about Mexico as well here. And what do we get from Mexico? We get
Cars,
well, you
fruits,
get
vegetables,
cars, vegetables, avocados, and the margins
tequila.
on those things are already very thin.
Right.
So so there's not a whole lot of room for the importer to just eat it, or he loses all
Exactly.
his profit.
Exactly. And adding to that, so what I want, the reason I brought that up, right, is Trump may feel that he can get away with it because remember, all these tariffs are a tax on anybody who purchased these products. And anybody goes to Walmart, most of the products are from China. Everybody who buys a car, most of those cars have parts made in Mexico or Canada. Anybody buys tequila, anybody buys avocado. All these things are coming from these places.
Canadian whiskey.
Canadian, here you go, right? So all these costs are going to be applied to us. So it is a recessive tax, a tax that all of us are going to pay to Trump, and that he believes will partially make the books look okay for them. Remember, he did this right away, Marlon. You have to
Did.
ask yourself
He did it
why
in
he did it right
2017.
away.
Well,
Because he
he
wants,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead,
you
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No,
He
go
wants
ahead.
the OMB. He wants a budget office to say, well, we are going to be pulling in X amount of dollars in tariffs, which is a lot more than they were before. So now we can actually give these bigger tax cuts that would look like deficits on paper before we actually see the outcomes of the tariffs being applied. It's no, I don't hear the mainstream media talking about this. We're talking about a massive amount of tariffs. We're talking about
Yeah.
$1.5 trillion, cut 20 something percent of that. And you see the amount of money that, assuming that everything stayed the same, what he would be able to tell OMB, well, you know what? I have $100 billion more coming into the coffers, or maybe $200 billion more coming into the coffers. And that's all on you. That
Well,
is American paying more money.
a lot of pain is going to come with that, and I guess what I would say, and you know, on one side of the ledger, that is true. On the other side of the ledger, you're talking about Canada. Canada has kind of held back a little bit in terms of what they can do to us with regard to energy.
Hmm.
You know,
Oh, yes.
just kind of
Make
put
that
that
point.
off.
Marlon, expand on that point. That's a very important point.
Well, I mean, we have, and I'm not an expert, in energy and how in terms of how it's processed, but we have, to my understanding, specific refineries in the
Yes,
northern U.S. that are basically there to receive oil just from Canada that's
yes.
then refined into gasoline. So what do we do if Canada decides? Now, I think there is a tariff, but I think it's only 10% for now. But what if that goes to 25%? I mean, as it stands now, I was just reading a report that suggested that gasoline could go up as much as 20, 30 cents a
Well,
gallon.
I saw 50 cents. That's what I read. I just read that today, 50 cents.
Yeah. So I mean, and you know how it is with gasoline, it's pretty immediate. It's not gradual at all.
And it's something everybody sees as they're driving down the
Yep.
highway. And remember, that's what Trump used against Biden. Look at the gas prices. Of course, Biden's prices was falling, but Trump is good at illusions by saying,
Well,
"See
he
what
never
you're not
lets the
seeing."
truth get in the way of a good
Right? See what you're
info.
not seeing. It. Look, I think we have to stress more so than ever that this is a ploy. But what the reason I named what we're talking about, what I named it, is because, again, the reaction that's occurring in Mexico and now specifically Canada. What Canada is saying is they have done two things. They have started talking about buy Canadian, and they've listed all the American products that tariffs are going to be placed on, and told their people to get the replacements for those particular products in buy those in Canada. And
Hmm.
and of course, understanding that also the products coming to America will mean a diminished amount of sales for Canadian firms that they hope will recover some of that lost sales that they have. But again, the other thing that they're talking about, which is even more dangerous, is to open our markets to other countries and start importing from other countries. And Marlon, as a businessman, as a capital guy, more than anything, when you start to destroy consumption from one place, sometimes it's very hard to get it back.
That's exactly what happened in his first term. We had farmers that had built relationships with China that it's not like going on Amazon, and so these are relationships that were built over years and years that just blew up because what China did, not only did they hit the soybean, the way that they hit soybeans and some of our other farm goods was they just started buying from Brazil,
Hmm. Yes.
and a lot of that business never did come back. So now what when I mean Canada, Mexico certainly have other places they could go. I'm sure China's. What happens if those two countries decide, you know what, we'll just go around America, and they partner and they cut their own, a mutual deal? I mean, there are a number of different things that could happen here. And so America could find itself in the dark because of what this guy's done. And to me, I think because it doesn't make money sense. And I think it's just a function of this guy's ego and they called his bluff. He's
Well,
been saying this now for some time. And at some point, I don't know, I guess he may have thought that they would come to the table. And let's not sleep on Mexico's president. She's pushed
oh,
back
I love her.
very hard.
Sanborn is great. She was
And he's not
actually
accustomed to that.
Shanboyne was actually more reactive than the Prime Minister of Canada.
No question.
The very first time it came out, she came out and she lashed out. She reminded Donald Trump of a few realities, not because Donald Trump made it seem like, well, you are sending over these fentanyls to our people, and that's one of the things we're doing. And she said, and you're sending over your guns and getting our people killed. And you have,
Mhm.
I mean, she was. I read the piece here on Substack in Spanish. It was even more. It was even more powerful what she had to say in Spanish than the translation we got to English.
Mm.
She really let Trump have it. And I don't think
He's
uh,
simply not accustomed to that,
it's not
especially a
it's a
woman,
woman.
especially a brown woman.
Yes,
No, 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 no. He's not accustomed.
yes. So I mean, I think the one thing that I want to stress is I keep thinking, look, I can understand Mexico a bit. Maybe let's say he's going to use that so that Mexico really controls immigration from at Guatemala, at the entry point in Guatemala, and also control some of the fentanyl by really doing more checks. Let's give him that.
I have a comment about that if I could.
I
The
Go ahead.
I just see the fentanyl argument as such a red herring,
It
and the
is.
reason I say that, and it's not to say there's none, coming across the border, but a couple of things. Uh, there's demand. That's why these drugs are coming here. It's not
Now
like
you
they're
see why you
chasing
see
folks
why you're
down to
here.
try to sell them stuff. So I noticed one of the executive orders that Trump signed redirected this drug and I forget the name of it, and I'll post it on Substack. But the document is very interesting in that this is a strike force, if you will, that is specifically going after terrorists and drug traffickers and the like. And this executive order redirects them away from fentanyl to go after undocumented folks that might have shoplifted somewhere. It literally says refocus away from your prime objective, and we want you looking at illegals, as they call them. So if you're really worried about fentanyl, that's not really something you do. But the problem is he's got to make good on all this crap he has talked about, mass deportations. And for one thing, if you're talking about 25 million people that you're going to deport, you're not just talking about undocumented people, because there's at best 11 million, maybe. Who's going to do all that deport? I mean, who's going to physically do all that?
Well, let me tell you, Marlon. There are two things that I want to answer there. First, let me take the latter first. The truth of the matter is that the deportation is really a red herring. What he's trying to do is raise some money. His folks are going to get a lot of money for creating detention camps, etc. He's going to get a lot of kickbacks from farmers, etc., who are going to say, "Please look the other way so that my crops can get picked." I mean,
I
and then
will
he's
tell
going to
you,
say,
I
please look.
actually,
Yeah, and then he's going to take bribes from the meat packers that says, okay, please don't show up at my meat packing area, and so that these guys can do the work. It's all a
you
grift.
really think Trump would take a bribe?
Oh, come on. It's a grift, right? But I tell you, it's even further than that. I kept on trying to figure out about Canada, because
Mhm.
easy excuse about Mexico, but Canada,
It,
and
it
that
it
is
doesn't
where.
make any sense.
Well, it does. That's where he really believes he can use that at OMB to go ahead and get this bill passed. Remember, they're trying to do a quick bill with
Yeah,
reconciliation, not 60 vote majority, but with reconciliation. And with reconciliation, it
right.
has to be done within the budget. And
Uh, exactly.
he can use what he can lie about what he perceives he will get from tariffs to fix that budget. But Americans have to realize that the monies that he's going to collect, that $200 billion or so that he's going to add to the
It's not
budget,
even close.
it's not close, but it's a money, whatever it is, it's money that his own MAGA folks will be paying. It, his own MAGA folks are
It's
going to pay for that
yeah.
tax increase. And it's sad that the mainstream, Marlon, let me tell you, what upsets me the most is this is not rocket science. And you're an investor, a guy who understands capital. You can see all of this. Why is it that CNBC and all these other folks have yet, I thought about this, as soon as he did it. Why is it they're not out there pushing that story about reconciliation, the budget, and the amount of money they expect to come in via tariffs?
Egberto, I don't know. That document that you're referencing was I don't know if leaked is the right word, but it came out. I'm going to say three weeks ago, maybe on
Hmm.
a Friday, and I actually did a live and literally just walked through the entire document. Most of the cuts were out of the Ways and Means Committee. Well, there are Democrats on that committee.
Hmm.
And I kept looking. I'm looking on blue, the various social media, even X. I'm like, are they not going to say anything about this? Because that document, it's a wish list, and I actually wrote something about this. And basically, what they're um, doing is just, like looking under the couch cushion for money.
Hmm.
They're talking about making tuition scholarships taxable.
Right,
They're talking about um, um, taking away the mortgage deduction on your home mortgage, or the interest deduction.
right.
So I mean, everything you can imagine is on the table, and I I don't know where the Democrats are. I really don't, and I think it's almost like they're so shell shocked. But how can they be? The guy's been president before. He did this. This is his. This is his methodology of just shock and awe, just one thing after another. And all you have to do is just kind of take a step back, and you can see the picture. Now, like you said, um, they are definitely trying to raise money, but you have to also keep in mind 200 billion is a lot,
Hmm.
but the tax cut that they're contemplating, what they
Yes,
want to do is extend the what is it the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. So
right.
now got what they but it expires I guess next year, and so
In December.
or in December. Thank you. So what they want to do is extend that for 10 years. So if you look at that reconciliation piece, everything they're contemplating, they're saying, well, we can get this much over 10 years. We can get this much because they're
Right.
trying to do a pay for an offset.
Well, they have to because it's
Because
reconciliation. It's not
hell,
60
it's
votes.
dude, it's $5 trillion that they're
Yes.
talking about adding, and it could be more with because he's also at the same time talking about taking the taxes off of social security and tips, which is another red herring, because if you're making your living on tips, you
You're
ain't
not
paying
paying
tax.
taxes. Exactly. I mean, I try to explain, a lot of when I was doing some not campaigning, but talking about this with some people, you had a whole lot of folks like, well, he's giving us a tax cut. Everybody's getting a tax cut. If you're making tips, and I'm like, look, folks, look at the tables. If you are somebody making tips and you make under, I don't remember how much money I was under 30 something
Yeah,
thousand dollars
it's
or
around
whatever,
thing.
you're not going to pay any taxes anyway, so he's not giving you a break. But here's the kicker, Marlon. Here's what those tips are for. Notice the difference between the no tax on tips that he provided to no tax on tips that Kamala Harris provided. Hers was restricted to these workers in restaurants and maids, etc. His had no restrictions, which means a stockbroker could get paid in tips. Somebody could tip that stockbroker $100,000, and that's a tip, no tax. No, I mean,
Oh man,
you have to
it's
listen.
everything's a grift. Okay.
You have to understand whenever he proposes something purportedly for the middle class, it is never for the middle class or the poor. Because as you just pointed out, a tip worker isn't paying a hell of a lot of tax, if any. That is income tax. But that stockbroker is going to, if you give him $100,000 tip, it's a tip.
And
And all he has to do is say,
if you
hey,
think about Social
stockbroker guy,
Security,
I am tipping this to you.
if you think about taking the taxes off of Social Security, it's kind of like a low key way of choking off Social Security
Exactly.
because that tax, that tax you pay is going back into the fund that we've been robbing for years. So
A long time.
maybe that's a subject of another show, perhaps.
The Social Security is for another show, but yeah. So let me say we are currently at 26, which is about the cut time for Pacifica Network. So let me ask you a few questions here. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts as far as how this is going to end? Will these things go through on Tuesday? Will he see the light? Or will we get the 50 cents increase in gasoline prices, large increase in avocados, tequila, lettuce, etc.?
I would like to think he's going to back off, like he did just a week ago with the freeze that just shook everything. Uh,
Right.
but I don't know if he's willing to lose face two times in a row in less than 2 weeks. I think his ego is as such that he'll just burn the whole thing down. I really that's the Trump I know.
Well,
He
he's
loves.
already underwater. So let's see what happens when like I said, folks, what's MAGA going to do when they realize they've been had? And by the way, do remember they have guns.
All right. Well, that's a pleasant thought. Um, you know, I don't know what it's going to take, Edberto, for people to realize that I will just say this, and I know you have to wrap up. I had a guy that I got fairly close to that had voted for Trump both times, reasonable guy, and he would say to me, we can't let Kamala Harris in because my business is about to go under. I can't afford to hire people. They want too much, and I said, dude, this guy is going to put tariffs on. Well, I don't like tariffs. I don't think he's going to do that. So I don't know. And I will even tell you, look at the stock market. The stock market did not believe he was going to do this stuff.
Hmm.
So futures open in a little bit, and I'm just going to be very interested to see what the market's going to do now, because it's been functioning as though, oh, he's not going to do that. Nobody's that stupid. Well, he's done it. So now you may wake up tomorrow and see an epic bad day in the stock market, and you realize all this is inflationary, all of this. So we got numbers on Friday that were good economic numbers in terms of but the Fed admits they still don't have inflation under control, even without this. And all of this, when you start doing things that cause prices to go up, that's inflation. That's what it is. So everything that was supposed to be bad about Kamala Harris, we're getting ready to see it's really this guy that was. And think about all the economists that kept telling us, Goldman, the Peterson economic group, all of them were telling us, if this guy does these things, it's going to be ugly. So we're in the find out stage now.
Marlon Weems, author of the newsletter The Journeyman. Folks, check it out. Thank you so kindly, Marlon, for spending this afternoon with me. Your voice is invaluable, and more so than not, because much of what we talk about is not covered in the proper context in the mainstream media. Thank you so kindly for all that you do, my
I
brother.
appreciate you having me on, Egberto. Always a pleasure.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.